So Aiden, go now. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kate Donahue, Chair of the Democratic Town Committee. Welcome to the 2022 Candidates Forum. Thank you to Westborough TV and our cable producers, Karen Henderson and Aiden Horgan. Thank you to our volunteers helping tonight, Don Zenas and Debbie Dasgupta, Helen Panis, Bill Panis, Judith Tully, Anthony Vaver, and Jonathan Rappaport. We have a number of candidates here who have taken the time to address us. Thank you to the audience watching at home. The format tonight will include remarks from the candidates. We will also take questions for the candidates. People have submitted questions in advance. You can go to westboroughTV.org for the link to submit questions. We have already had a number of questions submitted. Questions will be chosen to cover a variety of topics and for questions that are of most general interest. Right now, we will start with Select Board. There are two candidates for two positions. One of them had a work conflict and is unable to be with us in person. We'll be playing a video a little bit later. Right now, we will have a 2-minute opening statement from candidate Patrick Welch. Patrick?
Thank you, Kate. I'd like to thank Westborough Democratic Town Committee and Westborough TV for this opportunity to speak directly to the voters in our community. My name is Patrick Welch, and I'm running for a full 3-year term on the Select Board. I said last year when I ran for my first 1-year seat on the board that I could gauge if serving was right for me and if the town thinks I'm right for it. Now I can answer only the first half of that question, in that I have truly enjoyed my time on the board so far. The team seems to be working very well, providing the executive oversight needed to work through issues and support the needs of our community. That said, there have been challenges, but none were unexpected or without merit. I see these challenges more as opportunities to improve our community. I've enjoyed meeting and learning from so many residents and business owners in the short time that I have served, and look forward to continuing to meet our needs in the coming years. For those that are unaware, I am a 39-year resident of Westborough. I live over near Lake Chauncey, where my wife, Julia, and I raised our 3 children, the youngest of which will be graduating from UMass Amherst later this year. We are also the proud grandparents of 2 2-year-old granddaughters. I've worked for several small and large businesses in town, and I'm now in my 23rd year at Dell Technologies. I look forward to the conversation and the questions that the committee has to bring forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Now we will play a video from Alan Edinberg. He had an unavoidable work conflict. So, Aiden, can you cue the video?
Good evening. I'm Alan Edinberg, and I'm running for re-election to the Select Board here in Westborough. Thank you goes to the Westborough Democratic Town Committee and Westborough TV for enabling me to participate via video, as I'm traveling for work and my schedule does not allow me to participate live. I will answer anybody's questions now or in the future. Feel free to contact me. And I appreciate this opportunity to talk about some of my accomplishments over the last 3 years. Very briefly, I focus on the quality of life and affordability here in Westborough while maintaining our public safety, public works, public schools, and quality of life overall. It was the foundation of my initial campaign. I still stand by that direction as the guiding principles, along with our town's mission and vision, our master plan, and our strategic plan. I'm proud of my work early on with the Capital Planning Expenditure Committee and work with the board to restructure the scope of that committee so that residents now have a view of all capital projects, town and school, regardless of funding source, prioritized and mapped out over the next 5+ years. So we have a better understanding of what needs to be done. Where's the funding going to come from? Will it be a borrow? How will we use our free cash? And how might it impact the tax levy? That transparency lets us make smarter, better decisions for the long term. I appreciate the opportunity to have served on the Economic Development Committee. I led that committee's efforts to establish a set of goals and objectives, which have supported the committee's efforts and the efforts of our Economic Development Coordinator with respect to our empty storefronts program and the local rapid recovery program, both of which are helping attract and maintain and grow businesses in our downtown historic district and other areas of Westborough. Those goals and objectives also facilitated the restructuring of that committee to include more business owners and more community representatives, so the committee's work is better integrated in our business community. Again, attract and maintain and help local businesses, small and large, downtown and elsewhere, thrive and grow in Westborough. On the topic of affordable housing, I've been a leader. I've hosted the Select Board's Affordable Housing Forum and facilitated that meeting, the first time all stakeholders involved in housing affordability were in the same room to discuss their respective roles and how we might move forward. I led the Affordable Housing Trust Working Group that did the research and the work and the planning to really identify how an affordable housing trust could benefit Westborough, and led the effort to get that approved by unanimous vote at town meeting, the creation of the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust. As a trustee, I'm working with a great team of trustees, and we've got some exciting things happening with respect to taking and even articles on the upcoming town meeting warrant to convert a small single-family home that was taken for back taxes into an affordable unit. We are looking to partner with the Westborough Housing Authority to construct hopefully 40 or more units of affordable housing for 62 plus old and older seniors, as well as individuals with physical disabilities and veterans. And also, we're looking to launch a first-time homebuyer program that'll give Westborough residents and town employees who qualify assistance into moving into their first market rate home. These type of programs and this type of focus are examples of the work I do, not just in the biweekly meetings of the Select Board that you see on TV, but in the other committees and other efforts, all of the work that happens outside of those meetings is responsibility of me being a member of the Select Board. I enjoy the work. I hope you agree with me that I'm making a positive difference and moving things in a positive way for the town of Westborough, and that you'll continue to support me, the Select Board, and those efforts. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Wonderful. That was great that Alan was able to participate, even though he is out of town. So at this point, we will be taking questions for the Select Board, and will the Select Board consider requiring masks for the March town meeting, so those residents who are immunocompromised and or elderly can safely and comfortably attend. So Steve, that's to you, and just to everybody. We are suggesting 2-minute responses. That's obviously up to 2 minutes. If it's a question where you can answer yes, that can make it simple. If it's a very technical question and you need a little more time, you can take a little more time. So I'm going to put that question in the chat. And Steve, I'm sorry, Patrick.
Well, that's okay.
So Patrick Welch for the first question.
Sure. So I'll do the best I can for you on each and every one of these questions. So yeah, the topic has not yet come before the board, although I believe it will be on an upcoming agenda as to how we're going to set up and configure town meeting. At this point, I suspect, based on where the COVID numbers are going, is that there will be as much flexibility as possible. And I would certainly encourage those that are immunocompromised, or perhaps family members may be immunocompromised. I would certainly recommend and support. And I think that is the message that our Board of Health has in regards to the current advisory that's out there as well. So right now there has not been a decision on what will be required and not required, but certainly, again, encourage all to wear masks if they feel better off with wearing a mask. Okay.
The next question for Patrick is, there is a possibility of huge light billboards being placed in Westborough. What is the benefit for the people of Westborough, and what is your opinion on the topic?
Great question. Thank you again. So I was really happy to see at our last meeting that our town planner brought forward a diagram to show the maximum extent at which the digital billboards will be able to be placed on the 495 Mass Pike properties. So they also extended the range from 1,000 feet between each billboard to 1,250 feet, which further reduced it to, I believe it's just a total of 5 maximum potential locations on the properties. So originally 1,000 feet, I think the number I heard was somewhere between 8 and 10 billboards. So this drastically reduced that number. So the benefit to the town is certainly the public notifications that the town can expect, similar to those notifications that are on the billboard over near the new Burger King on Route 9 there. Certainly for even wider communications around Amber Alerts, et cetera. There's certainly a tax, some tax income that the town can look forward to, as well as we haven't negotiated a contract yet. I know that Clear Channel, who is the company who is the applicant for these with the planning board right now, has suggested some numbers in regards to what fees the town can look to collect, but that has yet to be established. So hopefully in the future, if that goes through, town meetings vote and we vote on it in a positive way, then the town would be able to look forward to not only tax revenue, but also those fees being collected. What is my opinion on it right now? We as a board, I'm only going to share this as a board, we have yet to vote on that warrant article. And I'm looking forward to have a longer conversation about it, specifically to understand what the height limitations are and the impact to the billboards on Route 9, as well as there is a potential that they could also be impacted. So more to come on that. I will just say that I'm encouraged by some of the information that was shared with me.
Thank you. The next question is very open-ended. What is the biggest challenge facing the town?
Well, I think the town, now that we're hopefully on the downside of COVID, I believe that, the significant financial stresses of maintaining and potentially expanding the level of services needed will be a tough conversation that the whole community should join in on. As I hope most are aware, there's a significant tax increase of just over $1,000 this year on the average household. And while the board has had some very good discussion recently on the opportunities, the belt has been drawn pretty tightly already. I also mentioned that in talking with people, I find that most are happy with the services that they pay for. So it will eventually be a conversation of how we provide equitable services in an equitable way and what the relationship is between the commercial and residential taxes. Simply said, a dollar is not the same to all in town, and we need to make sure that we consider our senior community and those with financial hardship as we spend. I would really like to see that those that have built their lives in the town are able to remain as they have been the cornerstones of forming where we are today. So I'll just, I mean, it's super important. I think that we have some fantastic services in town, but there's a lot going on in town with the master plan and the staffing studies and whatnot, the town, and those things all have costs associated with them. And how we fund those things, as Alan said in his recorded comments, how we pay for those things, whether it's free cash, borrowing, or appropriating through taxes, is a really big discussion I think that we all need to join in on.
Okay, thank you. Here's another very general one. What surprised you the most after being elected to the select board?
Sure. So while I've been a regular at town meetings and various board meetings, I found the dynamic of being on the board in relation to open meeting laws different than anticipated. The best way I can describe it is that we are one board and we work through issues to ideally to come to one mind. Now, that isn't to say there hasn't been debate and dissent. However, once this discussion completes, no matter the vote, we all respect each other's viewpoint and support the outcome of the vote as it is in the best interest of the town. Case in point would be the November tax classification hearing, where I was the lone dissenting vote. And I suspect many board members will be rethinking their vote when this topic comes up later this year. So it's a very interesting dynamic between how we work as a board, how the discussions occur, and how we have to come away with, no matter how that vote occurs, how we have to come away with supporting that vote as a whole.
Okay. And right now, this is the last question. I would ask the volunteers to check to see if any questions have been submitted. We are doing well on the schedule. We would have time for maybe one more question, or we can move on if no questions seem to make sense, seem to be appropriate. What is being done to make Westborough friendly to small business? Given our tax structure, what is our strategy to bring more sustainable business to town? I'm referring to the businesses who come for a few years to get the tax benefit and move on. That's what the questioner was saying, not I. So
Sure.
I put that question in the chat.
So for those that aren't aware, we have our Economic Development Committee. I am not the liaison to that. However, I will say that in my 1 year on the board, I've seen some very positive work done by that committee. And that committee is tasked with building the business relationships to bring businesses into our town, whether they're big or they're small. And I think it's really encouraging the work that they've done. We've recently had a number of small businesses that have opened, whether it be the new Mexican restaurant on Route 9, or the larger businesses of Amazon out on Otis Street. So some great work there done by that committee and by all the boards that support that work. Can you repeat the second part of that question? I just want to make sure I had it right around the tax base.
It says you should see it in the chat, but I know it's hard to look at that while you're talking. Given our tax structure, what is our strategy to bring more sustainable business to town? And then the person says that he or she is referring to the businesses who come for a few years to get the tax benefit and move on.
Yeah, certainly. So one of the three wheels that we as select board members can turn to help with the taxes is certainly the commercial, industrial, and residential tax relationship. And right now, Westborough has what they call a 1.0 ratio, which means that the taxes are the same, whether we're talking about commercial, industrial, or residential property. It's based purely on the valuation. And for every dollar of value in a residential property is the same taxation as a commercial and industrial property. So that's as positive as it can be in regards to the commercial and industrial taxation. So we're a very positive town for businesses to come to, and that certainly incentivizes them to stay longer. And again, back to my previous answer, I expect that when we have that conversation again at the tax hearing in November of this year for next year's or for the following year's budget, we will look to better understand if we need to make any modifications to that. But that certainly incentivizes businesses to stay in town for longer periods of time.
Okay, and then thank you. We do have one more question. I'll read it right now, and it should be in the chat. The proposed Mass General Brigham expansion pulls commercially insured people from local healthcare systems, threatening their financial viability and continuing provision of emergency care and care for publicly insured patients. And the questioner asks, why hasn't the select board explained both these negative impacts to town residents?
So I think there's been a lot of information out there in the media in both directions. I've seen a lot of articles written in the pros and the cons. And I think it's a little bit of, which story do you want to believe? So I think you kind of got to read between these things and try to take the data as best you can. There's a lot of it out there. I will just say personally, when this subject came before me for the first time, I think it was month one of my my membership on the board. And at that point in time, I was specifically looking for a conclusion to what they call the determination of need, which is the state process to understand what the impact is and the need in our community. Our state representatives filed a bill around this. Our Attorney General has done some research and provided her findings on it. So there's been a number of pieces to this. And then finally, also Mass Brigham General also had to do a independent audit with independent findings on what the impact is to the community. We as a board already voted in support of Mass Brigham General. My particular vote on that was purely from the perspective of looking for a healthcare provider as close as possible to our community. And I will also say that I was also looking at it from the perspectives of, hey, we're in COVID, the health benefits with that, as well as the potential job increases in our area that we would benefit from. Just anecdotally, I'll provide a little bit of story. Recently, a family member who had to go to our local hospital spent more than 24 hours sitting outside of the ER before they were even allowed in the ER. and due to COVID, obviously. I'm hopeful that a local hospital will allow some relief to that. But I am certainly sensitive to the equitability concerns that have been raised. At this point, I don't believe there's another vote for our board to take that up. And we've already provided letters of support to the state legislature and to our senators. And we've already expressed our opinion in regards to the findings that we've seen so far. I would certainly encourage people to read about it. There are, like I said, there's a lot of data out there to process and understand. And it really comes down to, I think, which set of data you really want to understand. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. That ends the select board portion of our candidates forum. Thank you, Patrick, for being here and taking all those questions. Thank you, Alan, for being here virtually. And next up, we will do school committee. We have two candidates present for school committee, Steve Doret, candidate for school committee, Steve Bachelor, candidate for school committee. We'll start with a 2-minute opening statement from Steve Doret.
Evening, all. My name is Steve Doret, and I've served on the school committee for a number of years. I started my service to the town in 1977, and have served on the planning board, board of selectmen, the finance committee, and for many years now on the school committee. During that period of time, I've become quite familiar with the town processes, the town meeting process, writing articles for the town to consider, including either repair or construction of all of the school buildings in town. And one of the things I'd like to do is to continue that service to finish the Field School and some other projects that we have at Hastings School as well. One of the reasons why I would like to continue on the school committee is my ability to provide stability to the school committee as part of the longevity that I've had there, in anticipation of various new members, new members who you will hear shortly, who is replacing Sarah Daly, who served many years on the school committee as well. In addition to that is my budget experience for the school administration, as well as offering comments at town meeting. During that period of time, the interface between the school budgeting process and the rest of the town's budgeting process requires an understanding of the ins and outs of it, and various funds that are available to the town through both the state as well as grants, and of course the raise and appropriate function of the town at town meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Steve Batchelor, candidate for school committee.
Thank you, Kate, and thanks to the Democratic Town Committee, to Westborough TV, and all those tuning in to hear from the various candidates. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself to all of you. My name is Steve Batchelor, and I'm running for a seat on the Westborough School Committee. This year, the choice for school committee is really easy. All you've got to do is just remember to vote for Steve. In fact, vote for two Steves. When you vote for this one, Steve Batchelor, you'll be voting for someone who's running because of my belief in the town of Westborough, in particular in its public school system. Several years ago, my wife and I, both educators and both proud products of public schools, moved to Westborough precisely because of its reputation for excellent schools and the dedication to educating the whole child that the district has in place. We were especially attracted to the district's demonstrated commitment to students with more complex learning needs. I'm running for school committee because I want to share my skills and experience of having worked in education for over 30 years. As a lifelong teacher and learner, I think I'll bring to the committee empathy and strong listening and communication skills. As chair of the Westborough Special Education Parent Advisory Council for the past 2 years, I've worked to build positive relations with families and district personnel on a variety of matters. As a research scholar and academic, I'm practiced at synthesizing and evaluating large amounts of information And finally, as a parent and a townsperson, I think it's important to consider multiple perspectives and to meet people where they are and not where one thinks a person ought to be. If elected to the school committee, I look forward to continuing the kind of collaborative and evidence-based practice that has helped make Westborough Public Schools so strong and that will help continue to serve the entire student population. I hope that you'll consider voting for me, and thank you for tuning in.
Thank you. Right on time. With that, we will start with the first question for school committee. What are the costs to the Westborough school system to increase enrollment in early childhood education to all those interested? Please include the issues of funding, staffing, and classroom use. And the first, we'll have Steve Batchelor and then Steve Doret. And just to emphasize, these are up to 2 minutes. And if the second candidate feels the first candidate has already addressed it, we can move on.
All right, thank you. This is a great question. And if you paid attention to the most recent school committee meeting, you saw that there is a lot of demand for a number of increased classrooms at the Early Learning Center. And so this is something that I support, and it's the sort of program that when done well, it can be a self-funding kind of program, which is something that Michelle Palumbo, the director, commented on. And so there are lots of opportunities to leverage the demand that there is for full day learning at the preschool level, and to do it in a way that helps speak to the students who have complex needs, who would be able to be eligible through special education services, and to be able to create the kind of inclusive programming that Westborough has been known for. And so, yeah, I support these sorts of endeavors completely.
Okay, thank you. Steve, do you have anything to add, or do you want to answer it?
Yeah, our pre-K building, which of course is brand new, it's only a few years old, has 8 classrooms in it. And up to this point in time, we've only needed 7 of them. We have a full day program as well as 2 half-day programs, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And because of that distribution, we've been able to do well by using 7 classrooms, as was just discussed. At this point, the demand is such that, and the spread between the half-day program and the full-day program is such that the demand now is requiring us to more than likely put the 8th and final classroom into service in order to serve the demand. One of the benefits of our early childhood education is that for those who have paid attention with the diversity in the town, that we have many English language learners. And one of the benefits of our program is that the earlier we're able to get English learners into the school system, the more effective we are with the younger children, so that the majority of them basically become proficient in English by the 4th grade, which from our school system's point of view is not only effective and beneficial to the children, but it's also beneficial to the budget of the town, because many times we have multiple teachers in a classroom to be able to provide the service necessary to help the kids learn. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll reverse the order. The next question is for Steve Doret. These have been highly contentious, stressful times for parents, teachers, administrators, and school committee members. How do you see your role in building trust among all who work to educate our children? Steve Doret and then Steve Batchelor.
One of the wonderful things that we on the school committee and all the individuals and groups that you just mentioned, including the teachers union, have worked collaboratively together through this whole process of COVID and the basic stress issues. And for sure, there are people on both sides of the question of wearing masks and not wearing masks. But the administration and the school committee has been out front in terms of the process and understanding of the stresses that are on both the teachers and the students and their parents as we've moved through this problem time, where we believe we're almost through it. We have received, as most people know, the ability to flexibly mask for the high school and the middle school, with the relaxation of those requirements from the Department of Education, as well as at the state level, and the statements by the Board of Health in Westborough that I believe as of tomorrow, those who wish to continue to wear masks are able to, and those that don't wish to don't have to. However, I guess the one statement that does exist is there will be some classrooms based on who's teaching that will, for medical reasons, probably still require masks in those specific classrooms. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Steve Batchelor?
Yeah, I really appreciate this question because these are incredibly contentious and stressful times that have really polarized people in a way that I think has inflicted a lot of damage on the town. And so there has been a breakdown in trust over the period of the pandemic. And there is, I think, a need to rebuild that trust. And the best way to do that is by practicing transparency. It really is the only way to build trust, I think. It's by being transparent about what your values are, being explicit in expressing those values, in considering multiple perspectives, and then moving forward in a transparent sort of way so that there aren't decisions that are being made in back rooms, and so that everyone's coming to the table sort of knowing where they stand on issues in a healthy, constructive, collaborative way. And so again, to reiterate, the only way that trust is established is by practicing trustful relations. And so that takes a willingness on all sides to come together and be honest about what they value and what their positions are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Okay, the next question is, do you have concerns about the social, emotional well-being of both students and staff because of the stresses from COVID-19? And what actions do you propose to take to help remedy post-pandemic issues in the schools? And this will be Steve Batchelor and then Steve Doret.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is such an important question because one thing the pandemic has taught us is that because it's a pandemic, everyone has been affected. So there is no one who hasn't been touched by COVID. And the best way to address that is really to use trauma-informed kind of procedure. We have all been injured by the pandemic to various degrees. And so the best way to really deal with that is to approach this from a trauma-informed perspective where people are aware of the rawness of their emotions, the vulnerabilities that they're feeling, the ease with which people might be triggered or stressed. And so these are issues that in terms of the social emotional learning have to be put, in my opinion, as an educator, foremost, because the true learning won't happen unless the students, the staff, the administrators, the teachers are all in a good place emotionally and socially. Otherwise, there won't be any learning going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve? Steve Doret?
Oh, my response to that is that we have the staff, we have the administration, we have the sensitivity, and we've been working with the people under the and students under the constraints that we've had for the last 2 years. many of the things that the school departments in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts had to deal with was simply the directives from Boston, from the DESE and from the State Board of Health. But in that period of time, although it hasn't been a perfect relationship, the sensitivity and the staff of all the schools in Westborough have been working towards the goal of trying to make the students whole under the circumstances that we had to deal with. Certainly, you know, with the change in masking requirements coming shortly, I think the positive outlook and outcome of these issues will begin to take hold, and that certainly for the remainder of the school year and going into next school year, things will be looking a lot brighter than they have been.
Okay, thank you. Last question. Could you speak to the recent water issues at the newly constructed middle school? And this will be Steve Doret and then Steve Batchelor.
Well, there's two different water issues at the Fail School. The first one has been, in effect, building a project on a side hill in soil material that's very fine and transportable by water. That issue has been worked on for over a year. Thankfully, we're nearly done with the construction. The final area of work, of course, is the restoration of the play field down below the new building. And during the current period, with frozen ground, that issue is pretty much resolved. And the ability to restore the field and get grass growth on it in the spring and towards summer will finally solve that issue of erosion and our necessity for extremely elaborate and expensive erosion control for that site. The second issue, which I'm sure people are aware of, and if not, you will be now, is that the north doorway in the gym in the new school, based on ADA requirements, has an outside slab that's at the threshold of the door. The runoff from the side hill in the back of the building was not anticipated to enter the doorway, but in the first heavy rain that we had about a month ago, before the first heavy snowstorm, we found out that in fact the water was finding its way underneath the door. In the interim period, that door has been modified for one, with various material at the threshold, as well as sandbagging around the doorway, until the architect comes up with a better solution, which will include regrading of the slope and the gully, I guess I want to say, or trench, which will direct the water into a catch basin that is designed to receive that water, as well as more protection over the slab with either an awning or some kind of a roof over that area, so that this problem will be resolved. Construction projects, as all of us know, don't go the way we would like all the time, and I think we've done well through this construction to be at a minimum. In the meantime, the water that did enter, we immediately began dealing with that, to the point where we were able to catch it soon enough so that in fact we were able to dry out the gym, and it's back in service now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Steve Batchelor, anything to add?
Yeah, I don't really have much to add, other than really a plug for the sort of continuity that the school committee is able to have with the presence of Steve Doret. When I learned of the damage, I knew that he would be on top of it immediately, and because he is skilled at this, it's my understanding that there's insurance that will cover some of the outstanding costs to this as well. So I'm glad that we have some expertise to deal with these issues, because construction projects always have some sort of unanticipated costs associated with them. Thanks.
Thank
Hey,
you.
I had a couple of comments,
Sure.
just to pick up on what Steve had to say. Yes, we immediately got a hold of the insurance company in regards to these costs to minimize the damage and to dry it out. We also did mold sampling to make sure that we didn't have any issues with mold. And in fact, all of this will be covered by the insurance company. With both the help of Town Hall and the the assistant town manager relative to dealing directly with the insurance company. You know, I guess I can thank the custodians as well at Fales who immediately saw this problem and reacted properly. And actually, it was the custodians who built the sandbagging and protection on the north at the north door that kept out the next storm that we had about a week later. So, you know, we're thankful for all the help that we had to minimize this.
Thank you very much. We did take little bit of extra time on this, but I think it's an important issue for the townspeople to know what's happening with that. Thank you, Steve Bachelor and Steve Doret, candidates for school committee. With that, that ends our school committee portion, and we will be moving to housing authority. We have one candidate for one position. That's Julia O'Neill Welch, and you have a 2-minute opening. Julia?
Good evening. My name is Julia O'Neill Welch, and I am running for the Westborough Housing Authority. I would like to take a moment and thank the Westborough Democratic Town Committee and Westborough TV for this opportunity to speak directly to the voters. I'm going to say a little bit about myself. I'm born here and raised in Westborough. I'm the 4th generation to live in town. Married to my husband, Patrick, for 32 years on the St. Patrick's Day. We have 3 children, and the youngest is graduating from UMass this year. And we have 2 2-year-old granddaughters. A little bit of my work history. I worked in long-term care for 23 years at the Willows in Beaumont. I worked at the Westborough Tennis and Swim Club for about 20 years. Worked at the past area Westborough JCCs. And I currently work for the town of Westborough in the YFS department as the admin, providing community resources for those in need.
Okay, so question 1, why are you running for the Housing Authority?
I'm running for the Westborough Housing Authority as a lifelong member of our community and working for the past 6 years in the Youth and Family Services Office. I have a deep passion for families that are in need and understand their needs for affordable housing. I learned that there was opening to fill a 2-year committee position and felt that this was an opportunity for me to be able to give back to my community in a way that I care about.
Okay, next question. What do you look forward to contributing to?
I look forward to advocating for affordable housing and helping set our future direction. I also look forward to contributing to the financial discussions and policy needs.
Okay, very, very concise answers. What strengths and experiences do you bring to the Housing Authority?
Compassion, dedication, and local connections. Living here a long time, I've built a lot of relationships with businesses. I've built a lot of relationships with people within the community of all diverse backgrounds. And I think that this is a strength that I can bring forward, and definitely have heard their messages and know that housing is a priority. Affordable housing is a priority that we need in our community.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the Housing Authority portion. We will next move to, thank you, Julia. We'll now move to Library Trustees. There are 3 candidates for 3 openings for Library Trustees. Kate Daly and Ed Baldwin are both on the ballot and here tonight. Mary Johnston is also on the ballot. Kate and Ed will each have an opportunity to make up to a 2-minute speech, and then we'll take questions. So first we have Ed Baldwin.
Actually, this is Ed. I'm wondering if Kate could start first, just to, we talked about this ahead of time and she has sort of a more general lead in.
Okay, that's fine. Kate, if you wanted to go first.
Hi, yeah, I'm Kate Daly, Kathleen Daly on the ballot. I've been a resident of Westborough for nearly 16 years, and I've been on the library board. I believe this will be my 10th year. It's the beginning of my, if I'm elected again, it will be the beginning of my 4th term. I love our library. We offer so much to so many people as not just a place to get books, but as a community center. And I would like to help continue the progress the library has made in meeting the needs of our community, particularly with a renovated building that more effectively meets those needs because our town is growing so much. I guess that's it.
Okay, on to Ed Baldwin.
Okay, let's see. There's the video. I'm Ed Baldwin of 25 Mount Pleasant Street, and I'm running for re-election as a library trustee. I've also been a trustee for just about 9 years. I should say, and I was a resident for about 20. And I'm the chair of the library building committee. So my main focus this year has been the renovation project that is ramping up to a critical milestone in the October town meeting. As you may know, we've been working toward this renovation for 6 years. In June, we expect, in fact, we have been promised by the state that we'll get final approval for the money for a $9 million grant that we were approved for back in 2016 will be released. And the town meeting will need to vote to spend the rest of the money for that project in October for us to proceed with the renovation. So that's going to be a big decision. As Kate said, I love the library. I think the renovation will be great for the town. It'll help the town in a lot of ways, but there's a considerable dollar cost to that involved. And the town will need to make the decision on whether to go to do the renovation or use that money for something else, or just, keep your tax bills down a little bit. So my goal for this year is to ensure that come October at town meeting, the town's voters know what they need to know in order to make a good, well-informed decision on whether to go ahead and authorize the spending of the money for the library. So please come and vote in the town elections, and please come to town meeting, and thank you.
Okay, so I know you both touched on this, but the first question is, could you explain the cost breakdown for the planned renovation? What is the amount and requirements of the grants, and how will the town pay for the balance? Do you have a choice between the two of you? Which one wants to go first?
Let me take that one if I may.
Sure.
So this is Ed again. So to start with, in 2016, we estimated a cost of approximately $24 million for the renovation. That cost is going to go up because inflation and COVID have sent over the past 6 years. We do not at this point know, or even we don't have a strong estimate for how much it's going to be up. We're working with the architect and the project owner's project manager to firm up those costs, and we will have a strong estimate for the October town meeting. The breakdown, to take sideways, the state has granted us approximately $9 million. That amount is not going to change. It's fixed. We've gone back to the state and talked about that. To get that grant, we have to maintain the site, the square footage, and the general functionality of the library that was in the grant application that we did back in 2016. So we're pretty much fixed on what we have to build to get the grant, and the amount of the grant is pretty much fixed. That extra money will have to come from the town. We hope that the library foundation will also raise some funds. As I said, we don't know exactly what that is. We haven't decided with the town where that money will come from in terms of raise and appropriate or taxes or and so on, and that'll all be worked out for town meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Ed. Kate, do you want to add anything?
I would like to add briefly that the building committee has been working really hard. And one of the things they did was approach the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners to see what kind of flexibility we had in order to maintain the grant and build the building, and possibly if we had ways to change things. They did a great job. They found out the limits of the grant, and Ed outlined them. We're working really hard to make sure that we are going to come out with a library that the state helps us pay for and that meets the needs of our community.
Okay, thank you, Kate. You'll be up next for the next question, which is plans for the library renovation appear to be moving forward. In your opinion, what are the most significant benefits that the Westborough community can expect to receive when it is finished? What is the approval process to make it happen? And how will library service be impacted during construction?
Okay, one of the biggest things that will come of the renovation is the library will have more space, more meeting space, updated electrical and computer infrastructure, more bathrooms, which is not a small thing. We'll also have an opportunity to provide a better community center than we have in the current building, which is limited by size, among other things. I think, let me see. So I think the community is growing, the community is diverse and has a lot of needs. We have a great staff and they could help with that. The next question. So the benefits are a better library that meets our needs in terms of size, in terms of need diversity, in terms of community center. The approval process. Okay, so we are in the process of dealing with OPMs, owner project manager type stuff to get the ball rolling in terms of coming up with better numbers. The town will have to vote at town meeting in the fall to approve the project. And once that's done, more things start rolling. Ed's probably better able to answer that question. And during construction, we will have to have an off-site location while the construction is happening. And that process has been discussed, and I'm not sure where we are with that yet, because it's a little bit away. Yeah, it'll probably be, I'm not sure. I don't have an answer for that, but Ed may have a better answer.
Okay. Ed?
Okay, I can fill in a few of those details. One thing, starting back at the beginning of the question, we think of the library as a hub of the community, and it's open to everyone. You know, people who are 3 years old, people who are 90 years old, everyone in between, students, people looking for jobs. There's something in the library for everybody there. And so we think it's important, and we think that's one of the reasons it is a community hub. It's not just about books. The approval process, the one big step for approval is for the town meeting to vote in favor of spending the money in October. If that happens, everything else will go along, barring major catastrophes. And if it doesn't happen, then the renovation will be off the cards for on the order of a decade or more. At least the major renovation. We still will need to do work on the library to keep it functioning and up to code and not rotting and things like that. Library surface, we will find a temporary space for the library during construction. It will be somewhere in Westborough, but we haven't chosen that yet. We'll have to rent a space, and it's kind of hard to negotiate with the landlord for something that's 2 years in the future. But we are sort of kicking off that process. Just the schedule. If town meeting approves, it will be roughly a year to finalize the construction documents, get all the bids out, and get everything lined up to start construction. So in late 2024 or so, construction would start. The library services would move to some other facility somewhere in town. And then roughly 2 years or so after that, we should be able to reopen. That's it.
Wonderful. And now the last question for library trustees and the last question of the evening. What are some of the biggest challenges facing libraries right now, both locally and nationally? And as a library trustee, how do you believe they should be addressed? And we'll start with Ed and then Kate. Ed?
There's two big challenges. One is, libraries used to be a place where you went to get books. And with the internet, you don't need books so much for reference, and you can get electronic copies of books and things. So we actually get a fair number of questions about why you need a library at all. And even though the information is not all in books, the library is a source for information. And like we said, it's a community hub. You can go there for research, and you have trained librarians who know how to do research and find things for you. We have the teen room, we have the children's rooms, we have seminars and programs for every age group. So that's just a shift to electronic media is a challenge that people have been dealing with in the library for a decade now, and it's pretty clear that we still have a function after that. The other one is sort of trailing off, but COVID has been a real challenge for libraries because so much of the things the library does are in person, and people like to go to the library, and if you can't do that, it's a little harder. Hopefully, that will not be as big a problem in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate?
I agree with Ed that people have said things like, well, why do we need libraries? Everything's online. But our libraries provide a tremendous amount of expertise to people, as well as other resources. We have our Room of Things, which allows people to borrow internet hubs, those little portable internet hubs, so they can get internet when they're traveling. I think probably the idea of a library as a place just for books is going by the wayside. And we have to communicate that people can use the library for learning opportunities, for job search help, for people who, like me, may not be as up to speed on technology. You can go to the library and there's somebody there who can help you with that. And that's the kind of communication we need to send out, that the library is the center for the community for learning in all kinds of ways and for reaching other people, there's a knitting group at the library. There are book clubs at the library. And these are the things we have to keep communicating, that the libraries grow with their community as their communities need them to grow.
Okay. Thank you very much. That brings us to the close of the 2022 Candidates Forum. If the magic has happened behind the scenes, Aiden, can you bring up the slide for the trustees for Soldiers Memorial, if I have it correct? There are 3 people who have notified the town clerk that they are running for these positions. If everything's working correctly, you should see their names on the screen. And I hope you will consider supporting them, voting for them. And I want to thank everybody. First, I want to thank the candidates. We really appreciate you standing for office. We know it's a big commitment of time, of energy, and we appreciate your service, your willingness to serve the town. I want to thank Aiden and Karen from Westborough TV who helped make this happen. And I want to thank the volunteers. You really made this go very, very much on schedule. Based on my timing, I think we just did it right within the hour as planned. And I especially want to thank the audience, whether you're watching now live or you'll be watching later. The polls are open at the high school. Aiden, if you want to bring up the last slide. The polls are open at the high school from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, March 8th. Please remember to vote and have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank
good night.
you.